So, but up next is business news with Ini John.
Thank you so much, Chamberlain. Good morning, everyone. Well, what a weekend we've had, and spilling over from Saturday to Sunday. But more importantly, this morning, the business community is mourning two very great people. And unfortunately, one of them went along with his family at the Nigerian Exchange Group PLC is deeply saddened to acknowledge the tragic passing of the former chairman, Mr. Abimbola Ogunbanjo, and the group managing director of Access Holdings PLC, Dr. Herbert Wigwe, alongside his wife and son in a helicopter accident in the United States of America. Mr. Ogunbanjo was a visionary leader and luminary, that's in the words of Mr. Temi Popola, in Nigeria's corporate, legal, and capital markets affairs. He served as the president of the National Council of the Nigerian Stock Exchange from 2017 to 2021, and as the first group chairman of NGX Group from 2021 to 2022, following the demutualization of the exchange. His strategic acumen and dedication were instrumental in shaping NGX Group's transformative journey. Sharing in his condolence, the group managing director and chief executive officer of the NGX, Mr. Temi Popola, believes that the passing of both Mr. Ogunbanjo and Dr. Wigwe, a profound loss to the business community and entire Nigerian private sector. They played crucial roles in shaping both the NGX and the financial sector. And Nigeria and the world indeed will sorely miss them. We pray that their soul will rest in perfect peace and God will comfort the family that they have left behind. Well, now we'll move on to the global space. Talking about oil prices, it fell in early Asian trade on Monday after Israel said it had concluded a series of strikes in southern Gaza, slightly easing concerns about supply from the Middle East. Brent crude futures were 31 cents down. Looking at the numbers right there, 0.4%, that's what it amounts to, at $81.88 a barrel. WTI also down, same percentage, at $76.53 for a barrel. And we know geopolitical risks, including a feared broadening of the Israel-Palestinian conflict across the region and potential oil supply disruption in the Middle East, pushed prices about 6% up last week. And also Israeli military has said on Monday that it had conducted a series of off strikes on the southern Gaza that have now concluded days after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected that peace deal that was offered him. And logistics disruption in the Red Sea remain front and center of investors' concern. United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operation Agency has said that it had received a report of ship being attacked by 2 missiles south of Yemen's Al-Muka. Iran-allied Houthi militants are taking up the responsibility for that. While still talking about the oil space, but back here in Nigeria, on Friday, Shell Petroleum Development Company Limited delivered 475,000 barrels of crude oil to the Port Harcourt refinery, marking a crucial step towards its imminent restart after years of inactivity. The Port Harcourt refinery, one of Nigeria's 4 state-owned refineries, has been plagued by years of neglect and disrepair. Its rehabilitation, which began in 2019, is aimed at restoring its capacity to process 210,000 barrels of crude oil every day. A total of 475,000 barrels of oil have been delivered to the refinery. And the NNPC Limited has said it planned to complete test runs at the refinery by the end of January in a major step towards resuming operations 5 years after the plant was shut down. Well, outside the oil space now, the United Kingdom Minister for Business and Trade, Minister Kemi Badenoch, is in Nigeria. She came in yesterday for a 3-day visit to deepen the UK-Nigeria partnership. This follows the former Foreign Secretary's visit to Nigeria in August 2023 and last week's UK-Nigeria security and defense talks. Minister Badenoch's visit will take forward onward efforts by both countries to boost the UK-Nigeria trade relations and unlock new investment opportunities. While in Nigeria, she is expected to meet with, along with Prime Minister's trade envoy to Nigeria, Helen Grant, to have meetings with the federal government of Nigeria, state governors, as well as British and Nigerian business leaders and investors. We do hope to have a word with her later on today, and I think that'll be later. And then we'll ask her a few questions about areas of interest for the UK, and at a time, well, when multinationals are exiting the country, well, how realistic is a visit here? Who's she bringing? What's she assuring them? We'll get to those answers. I believe we'll do that tomorrow because we're meeting her later on today. Back in Nigeria, the Federal Ministry of Trade, Industry, Trade and Investment is working to attract investment into the oil, gas and energy sectors with a target of creating over 1.8 million jobs. This was at the forum meeting between the Minister, Dr. Doris Uzoka-Anite, and stakeholders in the special economic zones in Nigeria. She disclosed, as Dr. Anite disclosed, that she used the opportunity to share plans on creating a job center where Nigerians can easily access available opportunities. The meeting was at the Bank of Industry office in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. The potentials in the special economic zones in Nigeria have barely been explored. The missing link is a strong focus and collaboration between the public and private sectors. This is the message with the Managing Director of Oil and Gas Free Zone Authority, Mr. Banga Jada, his counterpart in the Bank of Industry, and other stakeholders bring to the Ministry of Trade and Investment, Dr. Doris Uzoka-Anite. Mr. Jada bases his projection on CBN data, which suggests that special economic zones can attract up to $66 billion investment.
Before December, these special economic zones will contribute not less than 3 million jobs into our economy.
We hope that as we continue to unravel the investment potential of the sector, that we will meet the expectations of Nigerians.
Their message is positively received by the minister, who affirms the commitment of the present administration to ease doing business in the oil and gas sector as well as other industries.
The economy, as they say today, is not looking too good because of certain metrics that we've seen. For example, the high exchange rate. But when you have investors who, despite these challenges, are coming forward and putting down investments and putting down money where their mouth is, then it's something for us to actually reckon with. And I always say, if you want to see whether an economy is doing well or not, follow the money. And I know Nigerians may be asking, how do they access these opportunities? So what we are doing is also to create a job center where we can actually put out the opportunities that are available for Nigerians to see and to contact those who are providing these jobs in a matchmaking process. So when you see where the jobs are available, then you can apply, send your CVs, and then get access to the employment opportunities that we are opening up and that we are creating.
The minister assures Nigerians that investors are interested in the country's real sector, and their interest will result in employment opportunities open to all qualified citizens. So, of course, that promise of job centers, we will take the minister on and follow up on that. Very interesting. We know that's what happens in the Western world, but I mean, hardly do we see such in Nigeria, perhaps because we do not have a lot of employment or job openings available for Nigerians. But we'll follow up with the minister on that. Now, last year, British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Mr. Richard Montgomery, said that Nigeria has the world's largest electricity deficit that affects about 90 million of the population. Now, on Friday, President Bola Tinubu officially approved the Electricity Act bill of 2024, making it law. According to a statement by Mr. Ajirin Galale, the special advisor to the president on media and publicity, the bill aims to tackle, if we could have the highlights of that bill, what it hopes to tackle: developmental and environmental issues faced by communities, hosting power generation facilities, and also there you have it. So these are some major focus for that bill, to tackle developmental and environmental issues in host communities. And then 5% of total annual operating expenses of the GENCOs will be used to develop host communities. And the idea is to have a neutral fund manager, to handle this. So what we're asking is, if this indeed is going to translate to more supply for electricity, because that's the language that Nigerians understand. But anyways, let's have this conversation with the chairman of West Power and Gas, Mr. George Etomi, joins us virtually from Lagos. Mr. Etomi, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Etomi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Good morning.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now. So, I mean, before we even delve into this, it's a sad time for Nigerians, especially the business community. Two great persons that have made a lot of impacts passed away on Friday night in the United States. And I know you're close to at least one of them. So, I mean, getting through this is a difficult time indeed.
It's a tough one, I must say. In fact, I was close to both of them. Herbert Wigwe and I were in the G7 group that was advising River State government on investments and co. And then Mr. Bimbola Ogunbanjo was just literally my brother, because I worked for Chief Ogunbanjo, the only job I ever had. And only about 8 weeks ago, we buried the old man on what would have been his 100th birthday. And Bimbo and I were part of the planning group that made sure we gave the old man a befitting burial. He was a colossus. Both of them were colossuses in their various areas, capital markets, and they will never fade in our memory. It's so sad. Herbert was only 57. Bimbola was only 61. They had so much spunk in them. They had accomplished a lot, but they still had so much more to do. And I can only ask that their souls rest in peace, and that the rest of us should not drop the ball, but continue with the legacies they've richly left behind.
Yeah, may their soul rest in peace indeed. Thank you for that, Mr. Etomi. I will join you in that prayers here from Channels Television. But let's look at the electricity reform now. I did not get a lot of excitement, around the signing into law on Friday by the president, but you are a stakeholder, major stakeholder in the electricity sector. With this bill now, even though we see that it's mostly talking about the hosts, communities, what does this change when it comes to supply, bottom line? Because that's what Nigerians want to know.
Yeah, but I get the point you're making. It does not have what I would call a direct impact on supply. The bill is simply an amendment of the act, the major act itself, to allow for host community, to accommodate the host community, because many of these GENCOs, they generate electricity with huge turbines. Some of them pose risks to the environment, and in many cases, the operations are so humongous. The feeling is that if the communities they serve do not see any benefit, it could be a problem, similar to what you have in the oil and gas sector. So this is simply, in a manner of speaking, simply legislating what would have ordinarily been corporate social responsibility of the GENCOs. But indirectly, it could have an impact in the sense that once the host communities feel that they are catered for, then they will have a strong urge to protect the facilities there. In the past, we used to have flashpoints between host communities and the generating companies. And from time to time, you have disruptions in the activities. But hopefully, this will eliminate it by allowing a certain proportion, as I said, the actual 5% of the actual operating expenses being set aside to be managed by trustees. I mean, there will be issues with regard to the fine details when the time comes. But the spirit behind it is that the government wants a harmonious environment for GENCOs to do their business and for host communities to also feel that these businesses have a positive impact on their lives. It could come through the form of jobs, it could come through the form of actual development of the area. And so many of the things, like I said, were left in the remit of corporate social responsibility is now mandated by law to happen. So to that extent, yes, it will make an impact. But as to the wider issue of the impact on electricity flow, those are still the familiar issues of shortage of gas, how you deal with that, how you deal with the debt issue to gas suppliers, how you ensure that gas which is produced in Nigeria is no longer priced in dollars, so that the practicality of making it available for GENCOs is actually achieved. Those are the bottlenecks. And once you unlock that huge gas potential to power, I can tell you we'll be well on the way to ensure that the electricity industry is stable.
Do we see a change in, for instance, looking at the area of gas supply? We're expecting Dangote to start anytime from now. We are also expecting the Port Harcourt refinery. And I know, we should be able to get gas from this. Does this give a renewed hope in the area of electricity supply through this, the operations of these factories?
Incidentally, sadly, the answer is no, because they are running on very parallel tracks. Those refineries are not producing gas. Gas is actually being produced in the gas fields. Most of the gas fields have been concessioned by the federal government. A lot is being exported by way of LNG. There's very little gas to power infrastructure in Nigeria. There are pricing issues. So a lot of these things have to be dealt with at policy levels. And I'm aware that this government is beginning to tackle it. We've carried the issue for quite a while, but now we must begin to answer those big questions. Why do we have so much gas in Nigeria, and yet the gas to power infrastructure is so weak, almost non-existent? Why is gas priced in dollars when we need it for domestic use, and it belongs to us? 60% of most of these joint ventures have NNPC participation. And why are gas producers not being paid? A lot of the subsidy you hear about in the electricity sector is actually to subsidize, is actually to pay for debts owed to the gas producers. So those are fundamental issues. And once they're dealt with, and I believe they will be dealt with in the course of this administration going head on to deal with the problem, we'll begin to see discernible changes in the electricity market.
Right, Mr. George Etomi, thank you so much for your time this morning. Chairman, West Gas and Power and Gas, thank you for your thoughts.
My pleasure.
I'm not concerned now is what is topmost. We've seen a lot of protests in the country in recent times. Over the weekend, I think there was one in Osun State also, and it's not about the cost of living, and food is at the top of that. We'll have some women who have come together to prefer or suggest some solutions. National coordinate, Nigerian Women for Agricultural Progress. We're going to be speaking with the national coordinator, Mrs. Omolara Swemson. She joins us from our Abuja studio. Ms. Omolara, good morning. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. I hope you are good too. So, food security, I mean, you don't need to even say a whole lot. We know the need. We see the pressing need. It's on the lip of everybody, anybody who lives in Nigeria. What are the women? What are you guys proposing? What do you have to do differently? I know you've been talking a whole lot about the efforts of the government and if it really goes down to the people who really need it to make a change.
Well, the Nigerian Women for Agricultural Progress, we are all about two things. First of all, we now want to speak with one voice and unity, because what we have done is bring together all farmers, women farmers in the nation under one umbrella. This makes it easier for us to reach out to the government and for government interventions to get to the grassroots farmers. Because one of the major reasons why we are where we are today in terms of food insecurity in the nation is because most, if not all, of the government's intervention has not been getting to the grassroots farmers. And you and I know that the major workforce in the agricultural sector, the entire value chain, is about 70 to 80% of women. So what we are doing is to make sure that the government has access directly to the grassroots women in the entire value chain of agriculture, from farming, cultivation, to post-production, to processing, to packaging, to even trading in the market. That is what NWAP is all about.
Okay, but how do you go about this? Because the government will tell you that, for instance, last week, the president ordered the release of grains, and it's supposed to go to state governors and reach out. So what do you bring to the table that is different? What else do you have to offer?
Well, what we bring to the table is this. Last week, Tuesday, at the Women International Conference Center in Abuja, we had our conference, our first ever national grassroots farmers conference. And we had in attendance about 1,000 women physically and also about 800 grassroots farmers gathering in their clusters, watching from joining from just one of their children or husbands' Android phone to join the movement, to come together as one voice. What has happened in the past, that would help me answer this properly, is that the government had been working with the grassroots farmers through intermediaries, loads of bottlenecks upon bottlenecks. And because of this, the intervention from the government and all the international agencies has actually not been getting to the grassroots farmers, especially the women. And like I said earlier, without the women in agriculture, there is not going to be any changes, positive changes in our situation when it comes to food security in Nigeria. So we are saying, we're the grassroots farmers. Forget all of the packaging your studio has given to me and all of that today. We are grassroots farmers. We had over 150 Women in Agricultural Association in Abuja last week for our conference. We had over 69 local government women farmers represented at our convention last week. These are women that do not understand English. We had to speak in Hausa, Fulani, Nape, Igala, Idome, and all of that, Igbo, Yoruba, to relate with these people. These are actually the women that are cultivating the food that you and I goes into the market to buy. And they're the ones that has been sidelined, that has not been getting any support whatsoever from the government or even the agencies. So what we are saying is, look, government, work directly with these women. Especially now, the low-hanging fruit to solve our problem is to make sure that this intervention gets to the grassroots farmers, the women especially, because the rainy season is approaching. In some parts of the nation, they're still doing dry season farming. But of this season, it's crucial to our survival. If we think that the food is expensive right now in the market, if we don't get it right now, this beginning of season, then we should really buckle up for what is to come in the next 12 months.
Yeah, so I have to tell you, there are other women groups, farmers, you understand, who also say the same thing. How would you expect the government to, because you need to speak, if your group says, we want the government to work directly with us, another group says we want, and then another one, you understand, then the government might just decide to do it on its own. So what's the right approach, a workable approach, when you have, women groups springing up? And we understand this because, of course, women are the majority when you talk about small businesses and farming and all of that.
Well, first of all, the government cannot do it on their own to start with. Let's get that clear. And as I said from the beginning, we are now speaking, what has happened in the past is it's been a sort of divide and rule approach. in the agricultural sector. That is why we call ourselves Nigerian Women for Agricultural Progress. And I said earlier, last week convention, we were able, over 150 different women associations in agriculture coming together for the first time in the history of Nigeria to say we are speaking with one voice. We had presidents of ginger, cassava, maize, sesame, chili pepper, shea butter, coconuts. You know, actually one of our regional coordinator we call her Mama Coconut. So we are coming together in one voice. NWAP is for every woman farmer organization in Nigeria. So we are tired of being divided, you know, because our division is what has brought us to this situation we find ourselves. And you'll agree with me that in agriculture, our strength actually is in our unity and in our numbers. So yes, there are a lot of other women associations, but all of these associations, we are coming together to speak under one voice. What this does is the government is able to work with us, the grassroots farmers, directly without having to say, oh, but we worked with this other group last week, this other group is coming up. That's why we're saying we're speaking in one voice under the Nigerian Women for Agricultural Progress.
So are you talking to maybe Ministry of Agri, or is it the Women's Ministry? Do you have any government ministry that you have reached out to?
Oh yes, we had reached out to the Minister of Agriculture. We'd reached out as well to the umbrella body. So the way agriculture works in Nigeria, we have the umbrella body, supposed umbrella body for all farmers association. So all of the associations in Nigeria are supposed to be under the All Farmers Association of Nigeria. We're working hand in hand with them. We've reached out to the ministry, sent out letters to the Minister for Agriculture, Minister for Women Affairs, and even to the mother of the nation, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, to let's come. This is not the time for us to hit the streets and say we're fighting the government, because it is someone that has food in their stomach that can fight, actually. We're saying, let us come to the table. If we on our own, the women, without support of the government or anyone or any politician, can bring together, last week Tuesday, we had women farmers with, physical disability. There's a name for them, people with disability, PWD or something like, you know. We had them from as far as Borno State. They came to Abuja with about 4 vehicles. These are farmers that are farming yaji, farmers that are, you know, that are the real grassroots farmers that can make impact in the output of our food production in the nation. So we've reached out to all the necessary ministries that we're supposed to reach out to, but the primary job that we needed to do was to get all of the associations you referred to, Women Farmers Association you referred to, for us to come together in unity, which we have been able to achieve with the convention we had last week. We had also reached out to the nation umbrella body of All Farmers Association, and we are hoping that with this we'll be able to work with the government to go in the right direction. We can't afford to not get it right with this season that is about to start, the farming season we are about starting.
So the season is of interest. What's the plan? What do you require? What do you want to do? How can we best use this season that's about to start?
Okay, so I say it all the time. The 2 things that Mr. President has done that is in the right direction, first of all, is to admit that we have food insecurity emergency in the nation, problem absorbed. The second thing that the government needs to do is to restructure the Bank of Agriculture. I have been in the agricultural sector as a commodity exporter for about 2 decades now, right? When you work with the Bank of Agriculture that is supposed to be the intervention bank between the government and the people, it needs to be restructured to be a proper agricultural financing institution. You know, and I'll quickly break that down a bit to the best of my knowledge before as time permits. First of all, say for instance, I'm a farmer. I'd approached the Bank of Agriculture that I have a cluster of cassava farmers, and we are in Fashola in Oyo State. We're about 50 of us. We need 10 million naira to cultivate cassava. Bank of Agriculture is not supposed to dole out the money to me. Bank of Agriculture should have a department, procurement department, whatever English name they want to give to it, that can give us all of the inputs, equipment, chemicals that would allow us cultivate the amount of farmland we have listed in our request. And the only money that should be released as part of the loan should be money that would need for like paying laborers, logistics and all of that. Because where this problem starts is when the government or Bank of Agriculture or AFDB, whatever, doles out money to the intermediaries, association leaders like myself and all, who do not really understand the importance and how to manage these funds, then it is already a failed project from the beginning. But if we have, like some other countries in the world, have a Bank of Agriculture that is actually a real financing, agricultural financing sector, that if a cluster comes to you and say, look, we process kuli-kuli, for instance, and we need 50 million to buy kuli-kuli equipment, the Bank of Agriculture gives them the equipment and they pay back for the equipment. As to the Bank of Agriculture giving them the equipment and expecting these farmers to go source for the equipment and buy it, there is a whole lot that goes wrong in this method or system that we've been using before. So the government needs to work quickly with the Bank of Agriculture, do the restructuring, and make sure they work with the women. I mean, I'm not trying to sound, I'm sounding like a woman. I'm talking reality here. The government needs to work with the women farmers. That's just is the truth. Work with the women farmers, restructure the Bank of Agriculture, make inputs available. It's not rocket science. Myself and the rest of the ESCOs, we do it in our private lives, in our locality, to support our farmers. You know, give them this input. For every grassroots farmer, they have one person in their village that has an Android phone.
All right.
Do videos and pictures and send back to us what they've done with the inputs or the money that we have given to them. So if we can do this as private people, why can't the government do it if they work with the right set of people, Nigerian Women for Agricultural Progress in Nigeria, especially if the government is able to restructure the Bank of Agriculture?
All right, so restructuring the Bank of Agriculture is top on your list of requests at this time. Well, thank you so much. We have to thank you so much, Mrs. Omolara Swepson, National Coordinator, Nigerian Women for Agricultural Progress. Good news that the women are working together, but of course, we don't want to leave the men behind, but let's see what the women will come out with. Thank you so much for your time this morning. All right, so unfortunately, we cannot take the markets this morning. In fact, borrowed some of the Sunrise Daily time. So guys, please, thank you so much for your generosity. You know, women, we talk with passion and we want to feed the nation. So, but back to you guys, Sunrise Daily.